Hi, I'm Kesten Rono, and today is day 86 of A Course in Miracles. Let's continue our review. Picking up where we left off yesterday, my salvation comes from me. Your salvation comes from you. Lesson 86, Lesson 71. Only God's plan for salvation will work. So, your salvation comes from you, and only God's plan for salvation will work. Everything coming from outside of you, this is suggesting, would be futile. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Please repeat this one time after me. Only God's plan for salvation will work. It is senseless for me to search wildly about for salvation. I have seen it in many people and in many things, but when I reached for it, it was not there. I was mistaken about where it is. I was mistaken about what it is. I will undertake no more idle seeking. Only God's plan for salvation will work, and I will rejoice because his plan can never fail. Okay. Lesson 70 was, my salvation comes from me. And lesson 71, only God's plan for salvation will work. It is senseless for you to search wildly about for salvation. You have seen it in many people and in many things. But when you reached for it, it was not there. You were mistaken about where it is. You were mistaken about what it is. You will undertake no more idle seeking. Only God's plan for salvation will work, and you will rejoice because his plan can never fail. If you are aligned with the Creator, emanating from a realm of all knowledge, beyond time, that is quite the purview on anything that could be. And if you are aligned with this Creator, then you have the all-knowing on your side. These are some suggested forms for applying this idea specifically. So for only God's plan for salvation will work, we may say, God's plan for salvation will save me from my perception of this. That is, if you are experiencing something in a way that is discomforting for you, well, you may choose to set it aside, which requires you to forgive, which will bring you closer to your own light, which will be God's plan for salvation. God's plan for salvation will save me from my perception of this. This is no exception in God's plan for my salvation. So just declaring that any hitch that we find in our mind, we may say, positive or negative. This is no exception in God's plan for my salvation. Let me perceive this only in the light of God's plan for salvation. Perhaps before we've even identified if something is positive or negative, we are relaxing this and deferring first to, let me perceive this only in the light of God's plan for salvation. May I perceive whatever it is that I'm experiencing for what it is, from the perspective of true sight, meaning seeing the truth, the light in all things. May I perceive it this way. May I leave my idea of its meaning and therefore purpose wide open to whatever it is that I may notice in the light of God's plan for salvation. Only God's plan for salvation will work. My salvation comes from me. Lesson 72 review. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Review 67 said, love created me like itself. That love is your creator, and love is your expression. Love holds no grievances. That was lesson 68. Love holds no grievances. That grievances are completely alien to love. They obscure love and keep its light obscure. They attack love, keep its light obscure. My grievances hide the light of the world in me. That if love and grievances are at opposite ends of some kind of spectrum, and grievances are attacking the light of love, well, grievances are hiding that light from you noticing it. Your upsets are keeping you in some realm of themselves in your upsets. Letting them go opens the door for you to experience something without your upsets, which you're not experiencing right now. And perhaps this is exactly the idea of noticing your light, your levity, whatever it is that you are, by forgiving, foregoing, undoing the need to hold on to an upset anchored in the past that is just fundamentally not here anymore. That is the power that you have. Your grievances hide the light of the world in you. And today, we review lesson 72, holding grievances. So counteractive to love, attacking love. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. What is God's plan for salvation if we are to be able to keep these lessons in mind? Grievances attack love and keep its light obscure. My grievances hide the light of the world in me. What are you? You are love. Grievances are attacking love, obscuring the light. Grievances are hiding the light of the world in you. You are love. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. God's plan for salvation. What is that? It's love. You binding yourself to your grievances is an attack. You are enabling grievances to attack love. So holding grievances is an attack on love. In this case, what are we saying love is? God's plan for salvation. His plan for salvation is for you to express and know what it is that you exactly are made of. That you are created out of love, and his plan, his will, your salvation is choosing to love, to be exactly what you are created as. Am I hearing my own words? I've spoke candidly that I asked myself, what would you want if you could want anything? And I heard back, to become the wavelength of love. And here we are reasoning that holding grievances is an attack on love, on God's plan for salvation. Because grievances are fundamentally an attack on love to obscure its light. So if you are not seeing light, you are binding yourself with grievances. And choosing to honor some upset and live below it as you recognize it, me too. We are deciding in that moment that we do not want to know what love is. We would rather know life through the lens of our grievances. This is the only way that we can attack what is our will, God's will. What is that? For us to notice what we are, who we are, where we are. Fundamentally invulnerable, perfectly peaceful, perfectly safe, knowing perfect peace, and freedom from worry. That is what you are. That is what God wants you to notice. You find that answer within yourself. This is your light, or it's your decision to be bound to your set of grievances. We can start small, but fundamentally we gain in momentum or strength as we bless ourselves by undoing this. This is a blessing to move forward and realize that the idea we had was not who we were. It was an idea that we had invested ourselves in. And simply choosing to notice another idea, everything about what we are experiencing changes, just like tuning into a different channel on TV. One could have been cartoons and the next one could be sports. Totally different. Same TV. Same observer. We are here to wake up to something within us and binding ourselves to our upsets, whatever it is that frustrates us, that keeps us in some kind of defense of guarding whatever it is that we have, or anger for what someone else has or has done, that we are fundamentally not living with our gift, the present, noticing our presence. And what is our presence? I don't know. What is it? Who are you? What is that? Love holds no grievances. It created you like itself. Unconditional love is unconditionally loving. There's no grievances there. That's fundamentally what you are, and that is what the expression of miracles are. And you are a miracle. Your thoughts are miracles, and your thoughts are connected directly to God. You could have this idea of opportunity to wear as a lens and say, is this true? Is it true? Do you dare forgive and see what you notice? Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Holding grievances is an attempt to prove that God's plan for salvation will not work. Yet only his plan will work. By holding grievances, I am therefore excluding my only hope of salvation from my awareness. I would no longer defeat my own best interests in this insane way. I would accept God's plan for salvation and be happy. I suppose this could hinge on whether or not you believe that there is a God who is offering you some kind of salvation, and that you are able to accept that God must be fundamentally within you of whatever it is that you are. Otherwise, we could simply point the finger and say that's another external figure coming to save you. No, that would be the intermediary, saying that you must go through him to have access to God. Here, this is saying this is fundamentally what you are. So whether or not you want to accept a God or try to make it external, so accept a God that's almighty or one that is less than, the arguments could happen here. But do you feel that you are alive inside? What is that? Just a heart beating? Just circuits firing in the head? Okay, maybe. Maybe. Then whatever you are is still within you. And maybe you reflect upon that. And maybe you feel that even if this is futile in the sense that it cannot go on forever, you are here. Your cells do seem to want to turn over and take care of themselves. You do eat eventually when you're hungry. You haven't frozen to death. You wear clothes. You enjoy a fire. That some part of you is trying to sustain itself. Why would you want that? Even in this case, if it didn't matter. Why would some of you be proving that it does matter? Maybe, at least, you could go so far as to say, stress does reduce my ability for these things to be successful, and it seems like there's some natural process of my body taking care of me that allows me to have a cycle through life, aging. Okay, great. I don't really like feeling super sick, so what if I took better care of myself? I can recognize, therefore, that total stress is not helping me. And I'll even admit that I'm stressed about work, or I'm stressed in the car, or I'm stressed with this relationship, I'm stressed with this idea. So I have some upsets. And if I didn't have those, even in this electrical meat suit, I would still feel better. I know at least that much. So we could at least say that it's not valuable to hold on to grievances. And you might go so far as to say, slowly over time, as you realize you still want to release them, maybe it's not forgiveness for you, but you still want to let them go. May you notice that you desire peace and meaning. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Holding grievances is an attempt to prove that God's plan for salvation will not work. Yet only his plan will work. By holding grievances, you are therefore excluding your only hope of salvation from your awareness. If you believe that you cannot be saved because you cannot align with the idea that God loves you fully and is welcoming you as you are, then you fundamentally believe that you have more meaning in your upset than trust in the idea that you are okay exactly as you are. This means that you think that God's plan for your salvation of knowing your unconditional light and love, that God's plan for salvation isn't going to cut it because you have this thing that it clearly can't see. Do you believe that really? If you have an idea of God in your mind. So you think that you know better. Eventually you might arrive at a logical assumption, at least, where you can take a leap and say, maybe God is actually providing me the best plan, even though it feels the riskiest because I'm afraid. Maybe you still arrive there. Only his plan will work. By holding grievances, if you're starting to realize this, you are therefore excluding your only hope of salvation from your awareness. If you're holding on to one, it would seem, you're still living a life separate from the idea of the unconditional love. So you will never quite see the total possibility, even if you're aligned with just one grievance. I don't think that is a matter of pulling yourself apart and adding a grievance of finding your grievances. It's just that maybe it looks like it's infinitely far away right now, unimaginable. But you still want to feel good, so you reduce stressors in your life, physically, mentally, spiritually, and you're arriving somewhere. You're noticing something. Who cares about the last one? Now you're really knowing that you're on your path. But if you ignore that you're on your path, you may not notice that you are feeling lighter as you reduce these stresses you've been holding on to. And if you don't notice that you're feeling lighter, you will be excluding your only hope of salvation, of seeing it in your awareness. You'll be unaware of it unless you can be aware of your progress, that you're reaching your goal, and being on the way is the way. You will no longer defeat your own best interests in this insane way. What is this saying? You're constantly looking for salvation outside of yourself. You're never going to find it. You're doing the same thing over and over again. It's also insane to be mortal and challenge God in that sense. Maybe we have a little bit of trust for the infinite viewpoint that can live into the eternal. That's not us. Could we be tricked? Yeah. Does it feel like you're being tricked? Well, maybe the part of you that has to feel your feelings. But do you fundamentally believe you're being tricked by being offered a perspective from within inside yourself to see more love and therefore conduct yourself from that position in whatever you do in your life? Does that feel like a trick? Do you have to give anything away for it? You have to give up your junk food. Yeah, you will happily give up untruths that you can notice if you let them settle on the truth and you decide that you're fundamentally worthy of the truth. Then you're willing to let everything else go. It is insane to continue looking separate from God for a solution that God is offering you and doing it over and over and over again, spinning your wheels for your physical life. Feels like insanity that you're living inside of it. Your best interests, the ones that result in the most peace, love, patience, abundance, it will be best to notice what they are if you put on the lenses of peace, love, patience, and abundance. Then you will be looking for solutions through those ideas. So maybe you're looking for those things and you're building them. Maybe it's worth At the same time, at least doing some reflections, but saying pause and saying, wait a second, if I could see these or see in these what it is like and know with a fundamental feeling what it is like to experience peace and love and patience and abundance, then I would see in these immediately where those things are and where they are not. And therefore, if they are not here, I would have to admit that without the perspective of moving closer to true vision with God, without that perspective, I was not building in my own best interests. There was me before, and there is me now. One of me before did not have the purview of, let's say, true vision, and the me now, let's say, has it. Well, it can see the truth. So if it looks upon the past and says, hey, whoa, that feels so obviously untrue, I can clearly see from here that what I was doing was not in my best interests. There's no shame. I was doing the best that I could, and it was helping me to see that this is not quite getting me what I'm interested in. To know our best interests is to align with true vision and then move from there, at least I imagine. And to do that, we will have to stop the insanity of thinking that we know best without this purview. We are talking about aligning ourselves with the primordial you, the fundamental you, and saying, what if you knew every idea from this perspective? You may say today, I am choosing between misperception and salvation as I look on this, that you either see or you do not, that you are either misperceiving reality or you are knowing salvation. How is it that simple? You are either leveraging true sight with the unconditional love or you are not. That salvation is simply seeing through your holiness. So we must see our holiness. So we must set aside our grievances. I see grounds for grievances in this. I will not see the grounds for my salvation. Excuse me, if I see grounds for grievances, I will not see grounds for my salvation, that they are fundamentally opposed. Love holds no grievances. Love and grievances are antithetical. So, if you are seeing grievances, you will not be seeing love. This book is saying that salvation and love are synonymous. God's plan for salvation is the only way to notice, to fulfill, to see your love, your unconditional status of love. So if you are feeling grievances, you will not be experiencing love to its fullest capacity, and therefore you will not see the grounds for your salvation, that they are possible at all. Note when you feel a grievance and say, grievance, thank you for being here. What are you about? This calls for salvation, not attack. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. So you are out in the world and you hear yourself come into some grievance. Who even said grievances this many times until we reviewed? You come into some grievance and you say out loud in the parking lot, this calls for salvation, not attack. There's happiness even in the idea, silliness at least. Thank you for your patience and listening and consideration. I am Kesten Rono, and today we are announcing that only God's plan for salvation will work. See you tomorrow when it's light again.